It's still Christmas.
Now that she runs, I'm warming up the paint for the wheels because it was in the garage overnight and it got cold. But I'm going to just paint those rims because I don't want to do it later. I don't want to have to pull the tires off later or tape them off later. So I'll just pull off the weights now and give them a good scuffing and a good painting. All right, the radiator is dropped off now. It's time to pick up the tires and take them over to discount so I can get the new tires mounted on these rims. I'm super impressed with the quality of the paint, the way it finished, the way it laid and sprayed. They even have a picture on Ace Hardware of the can of a Volvo on the front. So good for them. Look at how dirty the driveway got from all the rust and dust inside that engine. My goodness. When it comes to the braking system, there is no compromise worth your life. And I'm trying to keep telling myself that because it's getting rather expensive. I want to get this roadworthy, I do. The rotors are going to be replaced. The calipers I deemed replaced. Gosh, even the hard lines at this point. I thought for sure the hard lines would be okay, and the issue would be with the rubber lines. When I try to remove the end of it, it actually just bends the entire pipe. The entire pipe is flexing. That tells me if I continue to do this, it's going to just twist off the head of that and break it. Those lines, those two there, actually, I don't feel so bad about needing to replace them because there's good access with the radiator out. You see they run along the bottom and then they go up and they mate to a junction block. Look at the dust boots in here and you can see how dried out they are. Those dust boots essentially keep dust out of the seals, which are, you know, what the hydraulic pressure is pushing up against. When I opened those bleeder valves, I had to really mash down on the brake pedal to get the crud to pop out of there. It was just full of it. So we're basically doing a full brake system. The wear is uneven. It's thicker on this side, gets thinner there. So these pads were actually seated. I'm gonna go toward piston because it looks like it's flat coverage there, but it's kind of coming out sideways. So anyway, that's all just to say it's a good idea to replace these because I don't wanna risk it with brakes, so I'm glad I didn't drive home with those. Nick is coming back to help me today on brakes, the fuel tank, the rear axle, basically everything to get this car roadworthy. The garage is now covered in brake fluid. There's .4 everywhere. And you know what? The bearing feels so good. I am pleased to see that. And you've heard of booger welds, but boy, this is like a Dippin' Dot weld. Engine mounts look great, and so far it seems like I've done quite a bit on my list, but I want to keep going and get some of that momentum moving forward. So the two pulleys that are attached for the belts actually have a specific bolt pattern. It's asymmetrical. And then there's this big harmonic balancer rubber donut. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so this is a B20 front gear. You see the crank is just round. I mean, it's just sitting on the bolt right now, but the collar and the crank is round. There's a little tooth in there, so you know which way to put your pulley. Now, the B30 crank, would you call it a Dorito?
Yeah, it's a Dorito flipper. Turns out this is a rotary.
Yep.
Look at that.
It's beautiful. Give us a smile. Just to make sure that we don't put it in the incorrect spot of the 3, there are timing marks right there. So we have our engine set at top dead center, which is both valves closed on the compression stroke. Cool. We have the timing cover off, thank you, Nick. And come take a look at this gear. The condition of this is actually really fresh. However, it's insurance for me to have replaced it before the trip, 800 miles, the same way I'm doing replacements on all of my brake lines. A very healthy cam gear is in this engine, but there's no guarantee how old, how brittle it is, even just through a visual inspection. I don't know if they age well or if they start to show marks on the ends, like a regular hypoid gears would in a differential. You know, end of the day, it's 150 bucks for a job that could be very expensive later if I don't replace it now. So that's my bit of insurance. So thank you for watching these videos. That's why I'm not begging you guys for money, because you've been sticking around for these, and those views really do help, and giving thumbs up helps a lot too, so we can keep this momentum going. Actually, I don't know if I've shown you the battery tray, but I used the rust sealer on it, and it came out with this white finish, which you do brush off at the end. They said it's normal for it to look like this, but after we brush off the white stuff and hold our breath very nicely, it should be ready for paint. But that's something I'm gonna do later. How's that bearing feel?
It feels good. Nice, smooth click.
Proportioning valves Got one for each circuit. The rubber lines, again, preserved under the gunk. But I've got new lines, so we're gonna replace those. Gosh, wait, how many mufflers are there? We've got one muffler, two, this big canister back there, and then there's another, one of these is probably a resonator, but they might all just be called mufflers. Looking at the drive shaft, the bearing is smooth. The rubber is worn out on the top side there. And then there's this kind of stuff that I have to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like a nice golden color, but it's a little greenish.
I mean, it's sucking out. I think it's fine.
Yeah, we're gonna replace it.
Okay.
41-11, it's a 3.73 rear end ratio. Me gusta.
Hubcappies?
Crappies.
Oh, Swedish pancakes.
Yeah, that's my turn signal.
Oh.
Notice I've only got one in the front, so it does.
Oh, that makes so much more sense now.
I wonder if we'll find some goodies. I'm gonna add door clips to my next order. This is where the front door opens too wide and it hits, you know, it makes that 100-degree. This is another downside. Probably the worst rust I've seen on it because all the debris would just collect right here and the water, but I'm glad that this is intact because trunk needed replacing for other reasons. So that just adds to its other nasty features.
Shazam!
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh, gross. The humble trickle. We need a longer screwdriver. There's that Texas tea, you know?
Oh,
that black gold.
I bet it's sweet tasting too. It smells like terrible whiskey.
Actually, that makes me tolerate it a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's not bad. Yeah, not bad at all. If you need to stop metal particles from clogging up your fuel lines, the easy trick, put a magnet by your pickup tube, one of those big heavy-duty store magnets. That should help. All right, let's get some acetone in here.
It's still Christmas.
I'm really proud of the work that we did here today. Oh, it sucks when you have to re-record a speech. And, you know, we had a gallon of gasoline in the tank. We're going to send it off to get flushed rather romantically at a radiator shop with a foreign man called Mike. But we got the gas tank out. We got the fuel lines removed. Not fuel lines, the brake lines. I've replaced the rear hoses. I've added the front hoses, but I need to put the new lines and new calipers. Oh no, I see the wires are broken in there. I like that sound. Yeah. So maybe we've just been listening to slow jazz too much, but I feel quite at peace over the entire situation. And am I forgetting anything? Our turn signal is one step closer to being reunited with its electrical brethren, but... Oh, hold on a second. There we go.
Make it look new.
There we go. These are solid. That's been my observation. And why? Why would you hide your horn behind a slotted or a non-slotted grill?
I feel like it'd just make it quieter.
I've removed the brake master cylinder, and it appears that this needs to have a seal for vacuum. So it's possible, let's say you've got one of these master cylinders that's not working, you could have a faulty seal ring around the booster to cylinder, master cylinder junction. And also there's an O-ring that goes on this valve, and I thought it was a valve, but it's actually just an elbow that locks into place, so if you want to remove it, twist it counterclockwise, which is easier with this out of place. So the actual valve itself is right there where the reddish hose meets the black. Also, it can be very misleading if you're trying to bleed your brakes and you think like it's full and it stays full and it stays full, but fluid's going out somewhere. Remember, there's two chambers and you're looking usually at the front chamber, so as you bleed the brakes, you want to double check that the back, which is the rear circuit, is not going to be losing all of its volume. It took a few days of PB Blaster for the wing nut on top of the power assisted steering to come off. The gasket inside is not so bad. I'm now going to use my fluid extractor to get the ATF out of it. I think the best way I can get all the old fluid out is just a couple of drain and fills with this chamber here. I'm interrupting your regularly scheduled broadcast to take you back to my very first Volvo. And hopefully we get to go for a drive. This is Larry.
things are good underneath. Things look really nice. Where I've removed dirt from the lines, they are clean. The back of the trans, you can see right there, looks nice and clean. Let's see how our gear oil has done these past 26 years. Oh, beautiful. This paper towel has only the stuff that I've removed from the magnet. You can see a little bit of gear oil, and it looks like a lot of gray dirt, probably just from being a non-detergent oil inside. But there are some flecks. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing has worn synchros and a little bit of grinding on some of the gears. So we'll find out. She'll drive until she don't, right? Attached a can of carb cleaner right down the pipe for the fuel line, and I was able to blow through it, which is good. It's not obstructed, but I want to ensure over the next 24 hours that soaks up any of the varnish, and then whatever comes out the rear end is going to be nice and purty. So the hose, you can see it right there where the clamp is, and it's been cut. It's just dripping some ugly yellow stuff. So tomorrow I'll blow through the line, try to get the stuff that's soaking right now out, and then spray it again, make sure it comes out nice and clean. Remove the starter, sweep. Remove the clutch cable, sweep. Whoops. You know what, if this bearing is not that expensive, it would be a good idea to change it. Doesn't sound great. It seriously looked like this thing took a dive in the mud, but if that were the case, there might be more rust. Also, the book says you have to remove the downpipe. I don't think that's the case because I removed the bracket that attaches this mount to the trans. So it's important to have something so when your engine is wiggling around during driving conditions, the exhaust pipe is wiggling from throttle, that you're not stressing out the downpipe, because that's where all the stress would go if the weight wasn't bracketed here and attached to the engine. So this keeps the pipe real sturdy all the way through, and then lets the rear of the exhaust system do its job with the rubber rings as you bounce around the road. I am not making good use of my jack. I think I need to just muscle the darn thing. Can't be that heavy. Boy. And she's out. Remarkably lightweight. And touchdown. Oh. If the whining I was hearing wasn't the clutch, it could be the pilot bearing. What a big clutch for this girl. Yeah. Looks like a groove was cut into the surface here. So my next step now is to remove this clutch, and I will have a good look at it. We'll see what the friction material looks like. This groove could be caused by seizing or over adjusting to the point where it's always got pressure and making contact on it. All right, or like a heavy foot on the clutch. If you're always resting your foot on the clutch pedal and it's just always making a pressure contact. You're supposed to adjust it within a certain specification. So if it was out of spec, that'll do it. Do you see on this transmission the word Volvo? How about now? That bearing is in need of replacing. And I think that's the noise we were hearing. Yep, looks like I'm due for a rear main seal. Not so bad otherwise. Things look kind of ordinary here. There's a groove in the flywheel. I feel it through my glove. I want that machined out. I want a nice smooth surface. There's no ledge between here and here though, which is nice, but something got caught in there and just cut its way into the flywheel. We will not have that tolerated. We will repair it.
Allow me to rant for a minute on the exorbitant increase in premiums, the cost of these parts for a car that only one car has this engine, and it's this. I'm paying almost 3 times for a clutch. The standard B18, B20, B21, B23, B230 clutch, 215 millimeter diameter. This clutch, 235 millimeters, so 20 millimeters larger for the bigger engine, more torque. Okay, I get it, but it's the only one that uses that, so I'm, $350 for a kit. Ugh. And then there's you. This galvanized piece of rubber, it turns out it's attached to the bracket, and that is how it's manufactured. That's a $65 part if I go through VP, which is the best price by far, because right now it's $112 on eBay for a motor mount, a transmission mount. It's January 4th, and I'm having another dead end with the alternator. They're not available, VP has them, but I don't want to fork out $200. Maybe it just needs a cleaning, or maybe a rebearing. Best case scenario, just a cleaning. Otherwise, it's gonna be another couple $100 for an alternator. And nothing GM is really seeming to work from what I'm finding online and using the part number in stores. So I think it's time that I go to a rebuild shop. We'll see if they can rebuild it for me. Well, she tested at 51 amps output. I just need to figure out, do I replace this with something that's going to be a brand new alternator, or do I rebuild and put the money into a used part that is questionable with a voltage regulator that may or may not give me an issue down the road. Some certain things just rub you the right way. So if you're in Albuquerque, check out Don's starters and alternators. Made the right decision, and I feel pretty good about this. 25-year-old gas in this tank, and while it's drained, I do want to get this thing professionally cleaned. So I'm back at the Indy radiator shop where I had my radiator. It's currently in there, and we're gonna get this thing cleaned up, hopefully. Here at Empire Engines, where I actually had the engine for Bruce and Genevieve rebuilt, and Arthur way back in the day. These guys do great work, but I just need that flywheel resurfaced. Sometimes I just sit in here to get away from family, listen to some Teresa Tang. If you guys are married or you got a big family, you might know the feeling. Putting a couch in the garage, the best. Two cables. 4 screws. And the heater control valve, yep. Gotta be careful with this plastic down here. Turning it around, you get a nice view of the blower motor, which is full of leaves and webs and spiders, and I'm sure that's a good thing for me to remove it before I try putting some voltage through it. Speaking of, 3 wires. Low speed, high speed, ground. Don't know which one's which, but I labeled this switch. Ooh, satisfying rhyme. A little bit of cleaning will go a long way, but the windings look nice, and I think she's ready to test. Green is low. Let's try high circuit. Woo. A little bit of vibration, so I'm gonna see if I can find out if one of these veins has more dirt than the others. If we clean all of them, we can try to get rid of that vibration so we don't have any problems later on. This is very exciting because it's so simple. I mean, gone are the days of just metal housings, and now we're into plastic, so good luck. Also, this heater core needs a proper rinse because it is filthy. Let's see how difficult that's gonna be. Here is a galvanized plate that has the temperature sensor. This is the capillary tube that will determine the opening and closing of this valve based on the setting that you put it with the wire that connects to the spring here. So, you know, the heater control at the dashboard tells this valve to open or close, and the actual opening and closing amount is determined by the temperature through this wire. This is the back side, which controls the side vents. Very cool. The foam in there, super brittle. So if I touch it, it will just fall apart, which means I'm going to leave it alone. I will, however, rinse the inside here. And then the front mechanism controls the floor. There you go. Looks like some foam's coming off there. And then I can undress it very gingerly. This looks almost identical to the heater cores in the 122s, the P1800s. The heater core's on the sink, and I put a little bit of this Prestone flush cleaner as I ran it through warm water. It's funny because clear water comes in this side and then it's pretty much red on the other as it flushes out all the garbage. So I'm gonna let this sit for a little bit. It's nice and toasty. I can, you know, keep it warm like this. And I would love to show you how much gunk came out of here, but my mother watches my videos and she will not appreciate what just went down her drain.
can't really tell what I'm doing, but I was underneath the dashboard in that hole trying to get the sand out from the cowl. And boy, was there a lot of sand. Well, it looks like I got most of it. But, you know, if you let it sit, I don't even know where it drains. I can't even tell. There's a plate that goes directly over the blower motor, so any water that does get in there, it shouldn't, in theory, pick up. But do clean it because it could rust if it hasn't already started. Is in, and I'm going to wait to tighten those two back heater hoses until the engine and transmission have been reunited. Also, I need to stop touching plastic knobs because they keep breaking. I think this one's going to be the wiper motor. It's the only one that's not labeled. But earlier today, I broke this guy just by touching it. So I'm going to put this back in. I've glued it, but it's just super glue on plastic. Yep. And then this happened just a second ago. Too bad for me. I think BP will sell the lighter one, but they might not have all of these available. And on top of that, I don't want to keep buying things. The wiper motor, and it was in the trunk, which told me that there's probably an issue with it, and that's why it's taken out. My friends, after a couple of hours, it turns out that I've discovered we have a faulty wheel. And not only that, but if you put it in the wrong way, it won't be in alignment with the circuit to mate with the mechanical limits of the arms. Does that make any sense? Think about it. The arms sweep from here to here, from here to here. The gears are labeled in, well, they're not labeled. They exist all the way around. So if you have the circuit starting halfway on the arms by, for example, putting this wheel in the wrong way, then it will keep going and then it'll eventually just get stuck. Or in this case, it's just spinning. Look at the backside. You see those cracks? Yep, it has come apart. That's too bad. I can't use this. I need to order another motor. Bummer. Forest. And deep forest green is hopefully gonna be close to what the car is. I think that's a little bit better. Let's see how it dries. No, it's not even close, dude. It's a weird color to find. Wait till it's all put back together, and we'll just reserve judgment for that point. I did paint those two brake lines for the master cylinder. I didn't cover them because they were showing surface rust, so I figured put something on them, you know? I'm running low on paint, but I've got enough to just smooth things over here and there. It's funny that I use wrapping paper. It's funny that the wrapping paper is green, but now I get to unwrap my car. Drilling out the bottom hole in the alternator to a 1/2 inch to accommodate the larger bolt, and it's finally finished. You know, the car is as far apart as I think it needs to be for what I'm doing, so that means it's now time to start reassembly. Pretty exciting, except I didn't anticipate it to go this far and cost this much, but you know, I've learned if you want a weird one-off car, and I tend to like the weird one-off cars, it comes at a premium. So surprise, surprise, everything's a little more expensive.